My name is Juan Carlos Gamarra. I'm the ambassador of Peru to the UK, and it's good to be back with a new installment of the Bicentennial Dialogues, produced by the Embassy of Peru and the help of U-Latin TV. Today, we will be touching on one of the British military officers who participated and contributed greatly to Peruvian independence in 1821, General William Miller, who fought gallantly in the Battle of Ayacucho, which secured our independence in 1824. And who better to speak on the subject than Mauricio Novoa? Mauricio studied law at the Catholic University of Lima and later completed a doctorate in philosophy at Cambridge University. He has published on various aspects of Latin American legal and intellectual history. He is also editor of Peru and Great Britain, A Common History, and Miller, Soldier, Politician, and Peruvianist. He is currently Dean of Arts, Humanities, and Education at Universidad Peruana de Ciencias Aplicadas. Mauricio, it's a great pleasure to have you with us today, and please take the floor.
My name is Mauricio Novoa. I am one of the editors of the book Miller, Military Statesman and Peruvianist, and I'm here to talk to you about the life of General Miller. Miller, I think, is one of the most remarkable figures in Peruvian independence. He was born in Wingham. He served in the Peninsular War, where he gained his military experience. And in 1817, he went to the River Plate, to Argentina, to partake in the army assembled by San Martín. From here, he went to Peru. He was part of the famous landing in Paracas, the first amphibious operation in Peruvian military history. And he was part of the army of San Martín and stayed in Peru even after San Martín's departure. In this sense, I think it's interesting to note that in many respects, the Peninsular War, in which both Miller and San Martín participated, is perhaps one of the key points in Peruvian independence history. I think this is one of the issues which is more often than not overseen by historians. You cannot understand the wars of independence in South America if you don't understand the Peninsular War. People like San Martín and Miller were lower-ranking officers, lieutenants or captains in the Peninsular War, and became colonels and generals in the wars of independence. So I think that this is one of the key points to understand both the origin of this form of military cooperation between the new American republics and Spain, perhaps originate in the Peninsular Wars. I think there are three fundamental aspects to understand the life and impact of General Miller in Peru. The first is his role as military. Miller helped to organize the first Peruvian army together with San Martín. He was part of what is still now the most senior unit in the Peruvian Republican Army, which is Junín Hussars, named after the famous battle. Miller participated in the Battle of Ayacucho. So in this sense, I think he represents this, both the cooperation or this alliance between Britain and the American republics, in which the first wave of British immigrants were in fact soldiers, and after that merchants, but figures like Miller or Guise, the first head of the Peruvian Navy. I think there are three key aspects to understand the impact of Miller in Peruvian history. The first aspect, of course, is his role as a military. He was part of the efforts to organize the first independent army in Peru. He was part of the organization of the army's most senior unit until today, the Junín Hussars. He participated in the battles of Junín and Ayacucho. So in this sense, he is part of this impact of British officers, most of them veterans of the Peninsular War, who help the young South American independent republics to organize their military. People like Miller in the army, or like Admiral Guise, in fact the first head of the Peruvian Navy, I think are conspicuous examples of this. The second aspect is the role of General Miller in Peruvian politics. Miller actively participated in what is known to Peruvian historians as the anarchy period, in which political confrontation went beyond the ballot box and expressed itself in confederations of regiments which fought each other in successive short wars to determine who was going to conduct the destinies of Peru. So this armed form of political conflict was the environment in which Miller participated, as in fact did all of the veterans of the battles of Junín and Ayacucho, which, as you probably know, determined the independence of Peru. Miller goes back to Britain in 1824 and returns in the decade of the 1830s. In 1835, he attains the rank of Marshal of Peru in view of his participation in independence, and he's a strong supporter of Marshal Andrés de Santa Cruz, who was a promoter of the Peru-Bolivian Confederation, as it was part and parcel of these early 19th century conflicts, the age of the anarchy, as I've just said, the flourishing of military careers and also its downfall depended on the luck which your military chief had. In this case, General Santa Cruz's project of a Peruvian-Bolivian confederation is challenged by a group of Peruvian generals, and he eventually lost. So that means that Miller also would lose all his privileges in the Peruvian army, and he's effectively demoted. So again, this participation in politics, I think, also evidences and reinforces the strong Peruvian links of Miller with Peru, and in fact, I think it's an example of the way in which the military officers, young officers who participated in the wars of independence, progress into the first echelon of both military and political leadership in Peru. In the decade of the 1850s, Miller's privileges and ranks are restored by President Ramon Castilla, himself a veteran of the wars of independence, and of course surely met Miller in the fields of Ayacucho. But the third key aspect to understand Miller is his role or his place as a writer. Miller writes memoirs, which are extremely interesting, I think, in two key aspects. The first is of course the fact that the memoirs insert themselves in other memoirs published and written by British travelers, in which they offer a view of Peru, not only of the territory but also of society, which departs from the Hispanic prejudices, I would say. So in La Condamine, for example, who was heavily influenced by this sort of Hispanic thought, the Peruvian Indian is regarded as submissive, but by contrast, you can see in Miller and in other British writers that the Indian is portrayed in a radically different way. So the submissive Indian becomes, in Miller's eye, the military hero. Excellent soldiers, soldiers which endured hardship and which were capable of doing extraordinary feats in battle. In that same respect, travelers influenced by this sort of Hispanic prejudices view the Peruvian nobility with a sense of ancien regime respect, whereas Miller, of course, offers a much more critical view of Peruvian elite and nobility. So in a sense, Miller offers a very different view of society, a view of Peruvian society without sort of caste privileges, a view of society which does not take into account racial prejudice, a much more integrated view of Peruvian society. So I think that is an interesting point. And in that same vein, I think Miller views both the challenges of Peruvian territory and geography and the potentials in a much more integral view than what the average Spanish bureaucrat would see Peru or would understand Peru from a geographical and a territorial point of view. I think that General Miller, or Marshal Miller, as he died, has a rightly deserved place in Peruvian history. He is indeed one of the founders of the Peruvian army, a veteran of the most emblematic battles in Peruvian history. He partakes in the politics of the day. He writes extraordinary memories which are still interesting to read now. And I think more importantly, Miller with time has also become part of Peruvian daily life. There are schools named after him, streets, avenues, parks. Recently, a statue was unveiled in his name. He has a wonderful mausoleum in the British Cemetery of the city. So this evocative image, which perhaps Miller himself chose to appear as the frontispiece of his memoirs, with his military uniform, but over the military uniform, a Peruvian poncho is both unique and I think reveals in the end how Peruvian Miller really was.
Mauricio, thank you so much for your very clear remarks on Miller and his contribution to our independence. I think our viewers will be very interested. And as I say very often, the gratitude Peru has towards Miller is immense, and I think this is a deserved tribute to that contribution that he made to our independence process. So thank you very much once again.